everyone, and welcome back to Gimme 5 book reviews and author interviews, where we introduce you to authors from all genres and explore stories, experiences, and messages behind their books. Today, I'm honored to welcome writer and advocate Erin Light, author of the powerful memoir, The Invisible Line, a story of harm, memory, and how we break the patterns that break us. Erin's memoir is deeply honest exploration of unseen ways people learn to abandon themselves in order to survive, and the courageous moment when they decide they can no longer live that way. Through a clear, unflinching storytelling, Erin examines how harm, memory, trauma, and survival shape identity long before we have the words to understand what is happening. Her story explores the patterns that kept her silent, small, and accepting the situations that caused pain, and the journey towards rebuilding self-trust, agency, and belonging. As a nurse living with a disability, Erin experienced stigma, discrimination within the systems that were supposed to provide support for her. Her memoir connects with three powerful areas: the medical system, homelessness, and church communities, and explores how social stigma can impact people's experiences of poverty, disability, and hardship. Beyond sharing her own story, Erin's mission is to create a greater awareness, encourage conversation, and inspire more research on how stigma affects people's lives. Erin Light is a writer and an advocate whose work explores harm, memory, and the visible patterns that shape our lives. She writes with compassion, honesty, and a commitment to helping readers recognize the patterns that break them and how to break free. So let's welcome Erin to the show. Give Me 5 book review and author interviews. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you. Where in the world are you, Erin?
I am currently in Okotoks, Alberta, Canada. Close to Calgary, Alberta.
Wow, beautiful there.
Do you know where I am?
I have been through Alberta, but I usually go to Winnipeg or Quebec.
Okay. Great.
So is that your hometown then, or?
Calgary actually is. That's where I'm moving back to. So I've been in Okotoks for a couple of years, so I'm ready to go back home.
Ready to get back home, get back to your roots, huh?
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, I'm in South Korea, and I've been here since 2004, so
wow, okay.
Feels more like home than America.
Does it? So you came from America? You were born in America?
Yeah, native California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my family is here, so it's okay. It's a great place. I love it.
Wow, that's good.
So Erin, I'm so excited to get to know you and your book. Are you ready to jump into our questions?
Sure.
Awesome. So let's get to know you a little bit. So Erin, before we talk about The Invisible Line, can you introduce yourself to our audience and share a little bit about your journey as a writer and an advocate?
Sure. So I was a nurse most of my life, and I have a really rare disability that most people don't understand, including doctors. And so as a nurse, when computers came in to the system, I couldn't actually, the computer was looking blank. And so that's where my journey of discrimination came, and trying to prove who I was. And so a lot of things happened there in that system. So they assumed because I couldn't see the computer, there was a lot of things that were happening. There's a lot of gossip. There was a lot of bullying going on. And so they just decided I was mentally ill, and I wasn't. I have a cognitive disability, not against anybody, but that's not my journey, and I can't own that journey. And so so my book started kind of during this time. I knew I was going to write this book. It took me many years because I think I had to go through the whole process. And so I got tired of I was followed around the unit, and they tried to prove I was antisocial. And when they couldn't prove that, they'd pull another straw out, and they'd pull another straw out because I didn't fit what they expected. They didn't expect someone like me to show up, right? And so that's when people get confused, and that's what I did. I confused them. And so then when I left nursing, I ended up homeless. And so it's part of my message that anybody can end up there. If you don't have support and something like this happens, it doesn't take long to get there. And then in homelessness, so the whole thing about my journey is, it started out me writing about my own story, and I wanted a voice, and I wanted to respond to the judgment and some of the harsh critique I took. But as it turned out, through every system, the same patterns kept coming back, the same discrimination, it's the stereotype. So stigma is, the way I frame it is, it's when people find out, I just have a good definition here that I wrote, so I kind of want to read it. So stigma in this context is what happens when people learn personal details about your life, like losing a job, not having a car, and slipping outside of the expected rules of society. And they start assuming failure and frailty and personal fault. And so that's what I experience in everyone. So it's like they view you through this lens, and they can't see you anymore. So it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter how loud you scream and fight and cry, they can't hear you. You'll just keep proving their view of you, right? Oh, see, you prove them right, actually, through anger and all of those emotions you're going to naturally go through, because it's an injustice. And so when I was homeless, so I was kind of you get brainwashed in the process. You don't, because you're so confused when you're bullied like this. And so when you're in homelessness, all of a sudden it's a mirror being reflected back to you, right? The people who I was looking at, because like attracts like, and it was not, I became friends with many of them. They helped me. I learned a lot from them. So I don't want to get that message wrong. But when you're seeing something and saying, you know what, this isn't who I am. And that's all I kept hearing was, this isn't who I am. This isn't where I belong. And I think that's when I really started to see the injustice, and that things just weren't adding up. And even though I have a disability, this isn't where I was supposed to be. And then I explored church systems, and the same stereotypes kept coming up. And you say something like, you're on a disability, or I have a disability, or I'm in a situation I'm really struggling, and all of a sudden they want to run your life, and they don't think you're capable. And so all of these things keep returning. So as soon as anybody finds anything out about you, it's like you just get lost in the dust, right? And you can never be who you are because of what everybody assumes about what they think about you.
Thank you for sharing that, Erin. It's so true. I'm a retired rehabilitation counselor, so
okay.
I can completely relate with your story with a lot of my clients. And, it's so unfortunate that people, they're ignorant and they fear what they don't know. So rather than try to understand it and to meet the person where they are and to view the assets that they bring to the page, right? To view their abilities rather than their disabilities. That is so frustrating. And I'm so sorry that you had to endure that. And I know it is a continuing story for so many of our folks out there with disabilities. So thank you for writing this memoir, for sure.
I'm really glad, because I felt it's very vulnerable writing a book like this, because you just don't know how it's going to be received. But I do, especially, I don't know if you know what's going on in Alberta right now with AISH, and the government's trying to change the program. One person has just recently committed suicide, and it really is about our ability, and we should be allowed to, we should be supported to have our own businesses, because that's what our ability. There's so many people on disability with amazing talent, like amazing, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Why isn't that supported? Why is it always doom and gloom? Oh, you're a failure. These are just some of the things I heard. No, you'll never make it. You can't do that. I'm like, why can't I do that? I was a nurse. Like, I do have some skills, right? So, right. And you're constantly running into that hard brick wall, and there's no way out. And yet people want to end homelessness. They want to end poverty. It's just like, you guys don't even get what it's about. It's not about money or food. It's about society's attitudes, right?
Absolutely. Those filters that people are viewing others through, it's so unfair, let's put it on an equal playing field here. Look at what I can do, what I do bring to the table, because even people who do not have a disability, we have things that we're up against too as well. But that stereotype makes it
Exactly.
so difficult for persons with disabilities to be able to overcome that. And it's so unfortunate. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for that.
It's been a really huge fight. Like I have had to fight for my life, and I mean, it's never going to end, but I try and do the best. I want to get this message out because I think it will resonate with a lot of people on different levels. And you're right. You don't have, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and that's how I look at it, right? So it's like we all have our challenges.
Like, oh my gosh, look at Stephen Hawkins.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Come on. So, Erin, writing a memoir really does require that vulnerability. So what was the process like deciding what parts of your life to share publicly?
So like I probably rewrote this book, I don't know, I swear 100 times. Right? Because when you're writing from the wound, it's really hard to finish the book because I didn't know what the ending was, right? So at every part of the journey, I kept rewriting the story. And so I think the parts, so like I had human rights involved with my case. And so most of my book is written around those human rights things. I wanted it to be educational. I wanted to tell my story, but I wanted to have frameworks. So I have bullying frameworks in there. And so I did a study in chapter 9, and I actually wanted to see, so on the journey, basically what happened was every time you have somebody in power and somebody who's vulnerable, they will like put this, they talk at you. You've got this, you're this, you're this, you're this. And as soon as you start standing up to them, like you have to, it's not just saying no to them. You have to be fully embodied in your power. And you have to say, you know what? That isn't true. This is true. You have to start laying out the facts, right? So there was a psychiatrist who I had just gone snowshoeing, and I came back and I was forced to go see him. And so he said, "Oh, you're dressed above your station." I'm like, "What?" "Yes." And so I laid into him, and I said, I went berserk on him. Like I lost it on him. I ended up telling him to go screw himself, basically. I slammed the door and I walked out. But in this, I do put that story in that chapter because as soon as you stop saying, I'm going to be your victim, I know who I am. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm good. Right. I knew who I was in the midst of it. That wasn't who I was, who he was trying to, what he was trying to do to me. Right. So I played it out through, I had examples so I played it out through all the systems, the medical system, the church system, the homeless system. And every time you respond in a certain specific, they seem to reorganize themselves around you, right? Using facts and giving them a consequence. So there was an instance here where my bank card shut me down. I was just getting my license renewed. I went to the bank. It's a small town here. And so I said, "Can you please help me?" And they're like, "No, we can't." They saw I was on AISH and all of this is the pattern. So I'm like, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I was just going to get my license renewed." She goes, "No." I said, "So how would you like me to pay for it so I can come back and show you my ID to get my bank account back opened?" So then I went home and I phoned them and I said, "You know what?" I said, "If my rent bounces because of you, that's on you, right? If this happens, that is on you." And all of a sudden they reorganize and they're like, "Oh, you know what?" The manager called me back and says, "Oh, you know what? Just bring whatever you have in." And I said, "You can actually phone my phone because that's what most people do and give me a code." Right? So you have to be on your toes and you have to throw it back into them with facts. Right. And then all of a sudden, and ever since then, they have been sweet as pie to me when I walk in. But sometimes you have to show them that you're not a victim and you're not their stereotype because they expect you to be something. They expect something when you walk in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it doesn't matter whether I was a nurse in the medical system with a disability or being on a disability and still having some skills, right? So but it's like you have to, if you don't, and I mean, most of people on disabilities are vulnerable. They're very vulnerable and they're used to this and they're just used to the treatment, I think. And so they don't know how to stand up for themselves. As soon as you do that, and what other example did I have? Oh, like a church person, I needed some financial help. And so I was actually trying to become a bus driver. That didn't work out in the end, but they didn't give me enough time either. But so she's giving me financial help. And so then she says, well, we're going to sit down and look at your finances. We are going to do a budget. I said, you know what? I already know how to budget. Actually, I was already tested for that and passed. It shuts her down, right? It's like, no, you're not doing this to me just because I need financial help. And then she goes, well, bus drivers need first aid. Yeah, I was a nurse. I've done first aid every year for 22 years. Right. So it's like they want to force this view on you of who you are. And like I spent many years crying. Like it was very difficult. So I'm not saying this path was easy for me. It wasn't. But once you get to the other side, and so I laid out my framework and then a framework for like abuse in workplaces, and there should be a separate reporting system. Then if somebody's, investigating you or like bullying you, or there's a problem, they can't be the ones to investigate it. Do you know what I mean? Because they're being biased. So I put that in my book. So I have a framework around bullying and just owning your own boundaries and developing boundaries, whether you have a disability or not. Everybody needs them. But
You
I
know,
think, no,
I
go
think
ahead.
I'm sorry, and I was just, before I forget, I think it's so important about chapter 9, where you're being very objective, and that you took your personal life situations and how you were viewed from these 3 different entities and made it objective, which is based on facts and truths.
Yeah.
This way they can't say, oh, you're just being emotional. It's like, no, this is my life. This is what I've been up against. This is how people treat me, and it's not fair. So I am so glad that this memoir and memoirs like yours are out there. And Erin, your title, I'm thinking it comes in here, The Invisible Line. It's so powerful. So what does that invisible line represent?
So I think it's where anybody feels invisible in their life. And so it can be anyone at any time where you're just not feeling heard or seen, and where you're feeling kind of erased from society, right? And,
Yeah.
and it's trying to find your way back and trying to find your voice and to get somebody to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. And so you're talking about the different experiences that you have. And I know you are joined by thousands, millions of people who are out there that experience this as well. So many people experience moments when they slowly lose their voice, confidence,
Yeah.
and sense of self. Why do you think these patterns can be so difficult to recognize?
I think because, like, just from some of the research that I've done, I think it's because you get lost when you have powerful people like doctors or like religious people constantly telling you, this is who you are, this is who you are. All of a sudden, you be quiet because, oh, and I think the systems also silence you. The way they speak to you silences you. They don't give you room to speak. Right.
Yeah.
So they're part of, again, that's a societal view where they start shutting the doors on your voice and on who you are, and giving you a way to speak for yourself, or say, no, this is actually how I feel. Right. Or no, this is actually what I think. And, I had many people saying, oh, you must be, you're this, or, oh, you must be really sad. No, actually, I'm not sad. Right. But we're not given that space to respond. We're giving the space to say, be quiet, and you're going to listen to what I'm telling you about yourself. Right. And so then that's when we start to close up inside and say, okay, like, where do I belong now? Where, right. And that's, I think, when we start to lose ourselves in the pattern.
Yeah,
And in the
really.
control and the power.
It's that they shut you down because they don't know what to do or how to approach it. So we're just going to usher you over here into this little box, and you just stay there and behave yourself because I don't know where to go with this, right? And that's so unfortunate. It's like you don't have your own voice. You don't know how to function for yourself because you have a disability. That is so wrong on so many levels. Let me started.
And it's that stigma that starts creating more mental health issues, right? Like, because, I think I don't know who wrote this, but I read at one point on my journey, somebody says depression is just not being able to speak or to be able to vocalize your thoughts. So when you're doing this to a lot of already people with disabilities or just any kind of issue, it doesn't have to be like a diagnosed disability, any of us, right? We've all experienced depression at one point in our life. And when we start speaking and standing up for ourselves again, all of a sudden we get clearer about who we are.
Absolutely.
Right?
So, Erin, you write about a moment in your book when someone finally decides, I cannot continue this way. What does that awakening look like?
I think it's so, I think for me, because every time I went into a doctor or a hospital, because like when I was in the shelter, I ended up getting deathly ill, and the paramedic wouldn't believe me. So whatever is written on my chart was they said, oh, it's just a sore throat. No, I'm sick, and I ended up having to call an ambulance or somebody to come pick me up, and then I called an ambulance from their house to get to the hospital. So for me, I just said, I am just so sick of this, and I just boycotted the system. And when they got you labeled so badly and you boycott, all of a sudden they wake up a little bit, not totally, but a little, right? But then it was like, oh, people in my life treat me this way, and this section of my life treats me this way. And so I think you have to grow a little bit. You say, you know what, like you have to on some level say, how am I contributing to this? And I don't know, I was just so angry. And I just said, enough is enough. Nobody's walking all over me ever again. Nobody's crossing those lines, the invisible line, right? They're not crossing it. And I just saw it so clearly, like it is an awakening. And I just saw it in every aspect of my life. The part I was contributing to it, right? I was playing the victim where I was vulnerable. I wasn't, you are a victim, right? When this happens, but you have to learn how to take that power back. And when you take that power back and you start really developing good boundaries around yourself and just getting very clear about what's healthy and what isn't in any relationship, your employer, the medical system, a church system, whatever system you're in.
So,
and you have to say, this is what I'm willing to take and this is what I'm not.
absolutely. So people don't know your boundaries and how you're going to show up for them unless you tell them and advocate for yourself, right? So otherwise they just dismiss you and this is what I'm going to do with you. And so bravo for you for standing up and saying, no, I know how to do this. I was a nurse, yeah. Right? So what does reclaiming your identity after difficult experiences involve?
So I think you have to find out, I think you have to discover, I think it's a rediscovery of what you're good at and what you're not good at, and trying new things and showing up differently, like you said. So I write about the circle of the wand. So the circle, the wand and the dance. So the wand's about your emotions, and right, we have to be careful who we pass our personal information to, right? A lot of us, when we're struggling, we just want to tell everybody, and we're suffering so badly. But it's so dangerous, right? Because that's when you give them your power and say, oh, I'm superior now, right? And this is how I'm going to treat you now. But as soon as you show up in a different way, you have to decide how you're walking through that door, right? You have to learn what the social norms are in that room. Leave your personal problems until you go home when you're with close friends, right? But we have to learn how to show up differently for ourselves and for other people, because we have to learn how to gain that respect. And you have to really learn what I really learned on my journey was, I really think I learned a lot about society's expectations, right? That I wasn't even aware of before. But I think the way you're treated in homelessness really wakes you up to what society really believes that they're not speaking. Jobs are very important to society. Like if you're homeless, they really do look down on you, right? So jobs are a very high must, right? So, and I know I have people with disabilities. Well, what else do I talk about? But you can, right? We have to give people with disabilities. See, and this is the problem: is that a lot of disabilities won't allow people with disabilities to actually use their gifts. They trap them and they box them more and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Because if you do that, means you don't have a disability, and that's not true. Right?
We get so hung up on the medicalization of everything and the labels that we forget that this is a human being here that came to this planet with their own special, unique gifts. And I agree with you, Erin. I used to always feel when I was younger that I needed to explain myself to everyone, but it's like now I don't give them any ammunition to use against me later. I just observe
Exactly.
more and
See?
just kind of feed back to them what they're saying. Oh, so what you're saying is this and this. And, it's always all about them. It's like, then I can walk out going, that's how I showed up. I'm good.
Exactly. And I think even now in this day and age, because just with like all of the media, cameras everywhere, like I think we have to be even more protective of our personal information and our personal journeys. And if we can teach people that and teach people to use their gifts or like how to join in conversations without us bringing our problem, but we have to have a space where we can, right? So
Yes.
I don't want to misconstrue that message, but because it's how we show up is how we're perceived. So in my book, I say, if a doctor shows up as a homeless person, they lose respect. And if a homeless person dresses up like a doctor, they all of a sudden gain respect, right? So it's that first moment we show up to something is how somebody perceives us, right?
Judging a
And
book by its cover.
it is, and it's very sad and it's really wrong because people don't know somebody else's journey or what they've been through or what they're going through in the moment. And there's not really there's no help. It's like most people are abandoned and you're alone in this and you're just trying to get through it the best way you can.
Absolutely. And Erin, I think it's so important. Once again, I'd like to point out how you have correlated the church, homelessness, and the medical system together, those elements towards your journey. So one of the important themes is that connection of the medical, homeless, and church communities. What patterns did you notice across the different systems? You started to touch on it, but I want to bring it out there again for our listeners.
So I think like there was a few things that came out. So blame was one. So like you're blamed for poverty, you're blamed for your disability, you're blamed for not being at society's standard. And when that happens, that's when the abuse starts to happen, like, and the assumptions and the stereotypes, and they use them as weapons, right? To hold you down, to keep you down, to punish you more. And so that was probably the one thing, like, I guess the stereotypes, the blame, and the judgment, right? And once that happens, like all these doors just slam shut. And there's no way out. Like homelessness is a revolving door here anyways. And like you can get on the train, but you're not getting off. You can keep going around in circles. Like they'll help you to stay homeless, but they won't help you to get out. Right?
Yeah, and it's like if you want to get a job, well, you need to have a physical residence. Well, to have a physical residence, I need a job, and it's just this hamster wheel that you keep running and around. Erin, I can relate because as a single mom, there was a time when I lost my job due to a neck surgery, and I couldn't get to work. So I was living in my van with my two kids, and they thought it was fun. We were camping, but I was scraping the floorboards trying to come up with $1.50 to buy them Taco Bell for dinner. So yeah, and it's like, just saying the prayers and hoping that someone up there is listening, right? I thought you would have got a
Exactly.
little more compassion from the church communities, but is that so? No?
Worse.
Really?
It can be pretty bad. Yeah. Um, it's just this because it's just this automatic, it seems it's automatic stigma. Like once you walk through their doors and you have to be I tell them very little, right?
Yeah.
And I'm very careful how I walk in there because it gets, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I really want to teach people like how sometimes their responses or they're over because they just want to take over your life and they want to run it and they just assume that you don't have any capabilities. And anybody on the street has to have a lot of strength, right? And you know that because you were kind of there too, right?
No, absolutely.
And just the challenges. And I know like what you're saying because you have to have places to do your laundry. Like you can't come to work, right? You're so unstable because you never know where you're sleeping, like, right? Like what you went through. And if you're constantly in this cycle of like financial instability and housing instability, how are you ever going to get a job? And no one's going to support you because they don't.
Yeah. And
Right.
in the economy, it's always that paycheck to paycheck. And if you're without a job within 2 weeks, you could be homeless, you
Yeah.
know? So it's definitely, you don't plan to be homeless. You don't plan to be in these situations, but life happens and it hurts. So I'm thinking, Erin, you're talking about the stigma and the impact of stigma. So why do you think that stigma can be so damaging even when it's invisible?
Oh, that's a great question. So say that again.
So how do you think that because we know the obvious stigmas, right? The stereotypes that are out there. But
Yeah.
then there's that passive aggressive under the radar type of stigma that's invisible, but still damages us.
It is so like, it is just so psychologically hard. Because it's not just people's words, it's their nonverbal like communication, how like it's turning their backs to you. It's distancing themselves to you because you don't fit in their social circle, right? You don't have nice enough clothes. Oh, you don't have a car? That was a big one for me. You don't have a car, really? Right? So they don't take you seriously. So how do you make friends? You can't, because no one will let you in their circle,
Yeah.
right? How do you get a job? You can't, because everyone, if they know about your story, you're not getting a job, right?
Yeah. So they're like quietly turning their backs on you, ignoring you, avoiding you so that they don't have to help or accept
Yeah.
you where you are and for you what you have to offer and actually discover that. I mean, wouldn't that be great if people said, "Hey, let me get to know you and all your talents," rather than, "Oh, yeah, sorry," right?
Wish people could meet you where you are and not look down on you for where you are, right? Just get to know me. And I think that's the biggest message that I hear from a lot of like people in my situation is just get to know. I don't want you to get to know, you know, what I've been labeled with. I don't want you to put more labels on me, right? I don't want you um micromanage me and like diagnosing, because everyone's watching you now. Oh, well, this means this. No, actually, it doesn't mean that. Right. And it's just like, so you're always on guard walking into a group because of it. Right. And it gets very exhausting
Very
trying
much
to
so.
prove yourself and to prove your worth. And um yeah, and you like, it sounds like you know a lot about this too, like you've experienced some of this. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I'm thinking too, as you're talking about the disability discrimination that so many folks sadly are subjected to, what do you wish more people understood about living with a disability?
This is a great question, because especially here we're having a lot of issues with our government because they think we're all faking it. Um, what do I wish they I think the challenge is because it's not just the challenge of the disability. It's it's keeping a roof over your head. It's keeping food in your house. It's like every day is just such a huge struggle. Where am I gonna get food this week? How am I gonna pay my rent this month? Right? And it's just, and then when the government messes with your money that's coming in, or right? And then isolation is an issue. And right. So it's like isolation itself can cause depression in people and high anxiety levels in people. And then when these groups who are supposed to be there to support you don't, and people like will just leave or walk away. Um, and I mean, sometimes there's good reasons to walk away, but when people don't accept you in because of this, or this, right? So how many churches actually have a lot of disabled people in them?
That's a really good question. Very good. And I wonder, did you ever ask a church member that?
I actually had a conversation with one, and I mean, it really made her think, right? There's a reason we don't come, right? So it's like it needs to be more welcoming, and we need to be accepted on whatever level we're on. it doesn't matter, right? And without being judged or people just trying to diagnose us, because that happens a lot, right? In different groups, as soon as they know something, then, oh, they're watching you, right? Oh, that means that. No, it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that.
they put their
I
new
said I had
set
a
of
stomach
lenses
ache.
on.
And one pastor said, oh, is it stress? No, actually, it's not stress, right? So it's like you're constantly fighting. Like that's what you're fighting. Their comments and their opinions of everything always turns into this, right?
Mhm.
So it's like I wish we could just be met, or wish people would just change their views. Here, I wrote another little quote here.
Oh, good. I like quotes.
Okay, good. Because I knew I probably wouldn't remember it all. Okay, so here I have a few notes here. So, the pain and the trap of poverty and homelessness. So, negativity is constant. You're blamed for not succeeding. You're spoken to like you're a failure. You're treated as if you're incapable of growth. You're judged instead of supported. You're never given positive feedback. You're stuck in this cycle because stigma blocks every exit. So the pain of poverty isn't just financial, it's social. It's the constant negativity, constant blame, constant assumption that you're the problem. And that negativity becomes the trap. You can't move forward when every door is closed before you even reach it. And so what needs to change, if we want homelessness and poverty to change, society's perceptions have to change. We can't keep treating people as failures the moment they fall out of the expected life path. We need to stop assuming incompetence and start understanding context. Stigma is the barrier, not the person. Anybody can end up there. Anybody.
Anybody. You're absolutely right. That all of a sudden they could be inflicted with a chronic illness that disables them, right? And now they're in that situation, right?
And like you said, there were men who broke. I remember this guy, he broke his leg and he couldn't pay his rent. He was out for a long time. There's no support. And where do you go? That's the only place you have, right?
Yeah, and I really like how you have tackled the misconceptions of homelessness and what is challenging, So you would like to maybe challenge society to meet people where they are and understand how they got there rather than trying to instantly label them and put them in a box and put them on a little conveyor belt and send them on their way, right?
Find out what their challenges are. Yeah. And what have they done to get out? Not one person has asked me how I got out of it, right? They still assume you're still there.
Mhm.
No, I'm not, right? So yeah, so that's I just if I can just change somebody's perspective through my book on how they see poverty and homelessness, and I would that would make me so happy if perspectives get changed through this, or their views on the experience, because some people who have read my book have said, oh, I didn't know you went through that, right? Because I don't talk about it, and I wouldn't, it's different when you're writing something than when you're trying to talk to somebody or tell somebody about it. I think it's more powerful when you put it into words, and it detaches you too, right? A little bit when you put it out into the world in a book. So, but a lot of people are surprised that they didn't know everything I went through, and they just saw the outward, like my cry, and you see the pain. They saw the pain and the suffering, but they didn't understand what was behind it. Right. And so then they start assuming things from that. And it's like, but they didn't have the whole story.
Exactly. And I'm listening to you and I can feel the pain that you went through. And I'm thinking, Erin, for people out there who are encountering someone that's going through a hardship, whether it's a disability that they're battling and trying to get help and the stigmas that go with that, or whether it's homelessness and the hardships and stigma that go with that, how would you tell people they can approach somebody that's experiencing one of these hardships or all of it?
I think when I was there, because people just, they want to make you your project. Why don't you just meet them and say, how are you? Or can I offer you a prayer? Or like, what do you need right now in the moment, right? Not even food or any of that. Just what do you need emotionally? And just show up for them when they're in trouble. So one thing on my journey, so there was times where I was really like in need of, like, I needed a cab, and it was at night, and I was dog sitting, and all of a sudden I just put on Facebook, I said, I really need $45 right now. And there was always somebody that showed up. They gave it to me. But sometimes people will send you the money, but they won't show up in person, right? You show up for somebody in person. Just show them that you're there and you care. Because I think that goes a long, long way. Ask them, just go for coffee with them without judging them, without putting all this stuff on them, right? That, like, don't just be their friend and just show up and have a coffee and have a conversation and find out who they are.
Yeah, I like that approach, because I know that I appreciated when I was in those tough spots, walking through the park and there's like a company picnic going on and somebody threw a steak away because it was overdone too much. And then considering, I was able to feed my kids, but not myself for 4 days. It's like I was so tempted to reach into that trash can and grab out that steak. And, I'm a vegan. I'm going to eat anything because my stomach is, growling. But, to approach them and just say, meet them where they are and have a cup of coffee and how can I help you in this moment, or what do you need, or tell me what's going on.
Say something positive to them. Notice some gift they have, or just notice something about them and make them smile. Right? Yeah. That's humanity. And oh, you've got beautiful eyes, or oh, I love your shoes, or if they're a good painter, like, there's so much talent in these things, right? See, and you understand the experience, you know what it was like to go without food. And so even with you, like, how could somebody have shown up for you, like, just to make you feel better about yourself? Because I know what it feels like. It's horrible feeling, right?
Well, I remember, thank you for that. When I was living in the van with my children, I actually thought I don't know how else to raise money but to sell my car. So I took it to one of those like auto pawn shops where you can get a loan on your title, because thank goodness it was paid off. And so the man could see, obviously, that we were camping, living in the van. And he just went to his petty cash and he took out $100 and he says, you don't need to pay this back. Just go get a hotel room for the night, get yourself some good food. And I think it's the action steps, the genuine action steps that I'm not questioning. How did you get here? Or, oh my gosh, what's the matter with you? But just to be one human to another and just say, yeah. I can read the room. I can see what you're going through, and just let me help.
And you don't even have to say a word. It's that like core understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, one human to another. Where did we lose that humanity?
I don't know, but it seems like it's gone. It really does. Like, it's not the same world it was. I don't know how far we have to go back now, 25 years ago. Like, right? Like, a lot's changed.
A lot has
relationships changed. And dynamics and
right. And I think that with COVID, that kind of brought a lot of people into their shell and more self-serving and, kind of like survival. It's all about me and what I can do for me. And that maybe had an effect on a lot of the mentality in society, I think.
I think so too. Mm-hmm. And what about we have to come up with better solutions, and we have to be able to use people with different abilities in different, right? And it would, our mental health right now is at an all-time high, with teenagers being on all kinds of medications. Like, there's something wrong that we're doing, right? So, and Definitely. It's not getting any better, it's getting worse. Mm-hmm. And we need to have some solutions, and there are no solutions, right? You got to have faith. I mean, I don't know what you did to get out of your situation. What did you do?
Through that situation, when I was finally able to a place where I could return back to work because I had staples in my neck and I had to get those out,
Oh,
from the cervical neck surgery, that I was
yeah.
able to my solution was always looking at the classified. It was before the internet came along and all that good stuff. So I was always reading the classified, and I thought, okay, God, you're going to lead me to the answers here in the classified. And if it was scrubbing toilets and, even though I had all this experience, but I could still do it in my neck brace and they would allow me to take that part-time gig, I went and donated blood for $30. So I was donating blood once or twice a week and get my orange juice and cookies, and that $30 would get me groceries for the kids. It's like, you do what you can. You don't go, oh my gosh, I'm just going to lay down and die now. No, I have kids to think about. I need to
You have to
do what I
fight.
can. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I did too. It's you just use your ability and create businesses and right? Yeah.
Yeah, find the opportunities rather than,
Yeah.
surrendering and throwing up the white flag because it just seems too hard. Go, oh, okay, I've got this challenge. I got this situation. There's always going to be a solution. I just need to knock on some doors, maybe not there, over here, and constantly find those opportunities to, get out of your
Support
situation.
you.
Exactly. Yeah. So thinking about that, Erin, in your book, so we're going to kind of focus more on memory, trauma, and survival right now. So you write about how memory and survival shape identity. How does the past continue to influence the way we see ourselves?
That's an excellent question, because I think it gets compounded, right? Because if you have so many experiences that are negative, as soon as you come to, something new, we halt. Oh, I can't do that. Or, oh, like because it's trauma, right? It's giving you that brake pedal, saying, no, we better not try that. We failed. And so my next book goes more into this, but you have to start visualizing and giving yourself those positive affirmations and start breaking down all of that old programming in your brain, those old beliefs, right? As soon as you start thinking bad things about yourself, once we start becoming aware of our thoughts, oh, I'm going to fail. I'm failing. I'm going to fail. No, I better not do that. They won't want me. Right. As soon as we're not even conscious of that talk, but it's there. As soon as we start tuning into it, nope, I'm going to say, you know what? Today is a new day and I am good at this, this, and this. And the more we say it, the more we do it, and the more we visualize, I have a visualization where for fear, where if you're facing fear, you start punching these bricks, and on the other side of the bricks, there's sunlight and there's success, and right, those things, it really matters. That's like our brain takes in that stuff, and it takes in our words and what we think, and we have to start creating different visualizations for our life. If we can't see a future, there's not going to be a future.
You're absolutely right. And, there's a couple of philosophies that I always fall back on, like Wayne Dyer, I believe he said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so if you keep waking up every morning with that monkey mind that wants to invest in the horrible things that happened 5 minutes ago, 5 years, 10 years ago, whatever, and your energy is going there, you're not fully present and you're not creating for the future. No. So you could just take your past and you could stamp it on today and you could stamp it on tomorrow, because it's all going to look the same until you take your power back and say, like you said, I'm going to wake up today. I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to keep pushing forward. Right.
And I'm not the person I was in the past, and you can't change the past. You can only change where you're going from now to the forward. Right. Right. Absolutely. And then I think that's where people get stuck, because they just keep replaying that old tape over and, oh, no wonder you're depressed, right? Like, and as soon as we say, no, today I'm waking up, I'm going to go for a walk. I don't know, I'm going to smell the flowers. I'm going to read something positive, right? I'm going to start my day out positive. I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to clean up my house. You know what? I'm going to get ready and I'm going to go out and I'm going to start, because how we show up comes back to us, right? If we think that today is going to be a positive day, we can do things to make that day a positive day. No, even if something happens, right? Even if there's a blip in the road, it's a blip in the road.
Exactly.
Right? And so we have to start changing how we react to things, and our lives will get better. Like whatever we're seeing and feeling is going to show up in our life, good or bad.
And as you're saying that, Erin, I'm reflecting back on my time as a rehabilitation counselor, and for our veterans who had post-traumatic stress disorder, and they were out in the fields and they were watching their buddies being blown up. And, so if there was like a song playing at that time or something that triggers that memory, they'd be right back there with their buddy getting blown up. So the dogs, the companion dogs that we had, the therapy dogs we had for them, they would recognize these triggers and they would like put their paws up on their chest and start licking their face to bring them back to present moment. So whenever we start getting caught up in that loop of, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, I'm this, I'm that, whatever that happened back there, program yourself. I touch my nose. So if I find myself getting reactive or something, I program my brain that I touch my nose and it's just enough to bring me back to present moment and go, change. I'm going to change. I'm going to respond to the situation differently.
Excellent. I love that. That's all it is, right?
Mm-hmm. But now my son is like, Mom, you're upset. You're touching your nose. Okay. You're breathing deep. Okay. Got it. Okay.
But it's true, right? Like it's like, I don't have anything against counseling, but sometimes counseling doesn't get into this stuff or the solution. You know what I mean? Because we have to kind of heal ourselves, and we have to find a way to heal, because nobody else knows our path but us, right? Exactly. It can help, and I don't want to say anything bad about it, but because sometimes it's like we're always looking at the past, but it's stuff like this that can bring us forward.
Absolutely. Right? And therapy is good as a guide.
It is
to help you, but it is an inside job,
Exactly.
Happiness is an inside job. You know yourself better than anybody else. So it all starts inside. Everything outside of you cannot affect you.
And you can have that support for sure. I don't want to sound, but that's exactly what I was trying to say, actually. Right? Like it is all inside. Everything we need is all inside. Mm-hmm. We just have to access it.
And I think, again, going back to Wayne Dyer, I think he says, you could spend 10 years on the couch with your therapist until they've got your dossier and they're going to hand it to you. And here's your memoir. Okay, are you done? Are you healed? Are you ready to move on to tomorrow, the future? Things are going to do, it's like, it is a guide, but then you have to go inside with that information and that guidance and go, okay, how can I heal this for myself?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And every day we got to wake up. And, when we've had trauma in our life, it's a lifetime. It's for a lifetime, right? It doesn't just go away. It's forever.
It absolutely. And I'm thinking about your memoir, Erin, and your experiences that you've had. So it's very cathartic, I think, when we're writing, when you write about it, and then you compared it to those 3 different entities, right? So how do you think the memoir has changed your understanding of your own story?
It is so amazing because this is my first book. So writing is the most amazing thing that can happen, because you're in your wound, you're in your story, you're just writing for yourself in the beginning. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. Like all of a sudden things became very clear to me, and things I had to change about myself as well. Like I had to build boundaries, and I had to develop my own self-confidence, and I had to believe in myself again. But it brings so much clarity about the whole situation, because I think even when I was writing it, you're still stuck and you're still wondering, well, maybe they're right. Maybe they were right. And then as you're writing, it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I went through all that. Right. But you gain clarity about a lot of things, right? Things about yourself too, that you have to also have some growth in, right? You have to grow too. And I think that's what a book does. It makes you grow and it makes you heal. But I think it makes you see things differently.
Absolutely. And so I feel that many readers can recognize parts of themselves in your story for sure. So what message would you give someone who feels trapped in those harmful patterns?
Wow, that's a good question too. When you're feeling trapped, and I have some people in my life who are really trapped in those patterns, and I think it's a very slow process. But when you're in that dark negativity, if you're touching your nose, snap a band. Just every time you get into those thought processes, or get somebody to point it out for you, because sometimes you're not going to be able to see it, right? That's what a coach does. And Get on AI. AI will tell you when you're like drifting, right?
Yeah, I gotta
And you
love
might not
AI.
like it when they tell you that, but they will point it out to you. But sometimes you need somebody to see, oh, you know what, you're slipping, you're going back there again. How about we say something positive about ourselves? Say, instead of self-hatred, say, I really love myself today. I love what I did today. I love what I wrote. Or you, right? Say something positive about your life. And every
Absolutely.
time you got to keep saying something positive about who you are. That changes the identity and how you perceive life.
Absolutely. And I think it feels like a major theme that's running through your book is moving towards belonging. So what does true belonging mean to you?
Um, I think before, while I was writing this book, I would have said that everybody just accept me the way I am. And now I say they can't accept me for the way I am until I accept me for the way I am. Right? They can't love me until I love me. And most people don't know what self-love really means. Right? So people wonder why the relationships fall apart. But it's just like, okay, how are you treating yourself? Right? So how do you love you? You can't expect someone to love you if you can't love you yourself. If you can't see your strengths or what you bring to a relationship. Or so I think acceptance now is accepting me for my good and my bad, and my past and my present and my future. And in that, you don't need anybody else to accept you, right?
Absolutely. And what does it mean to stop abandoning yourself?
So I think when we hit those, so crisis is really about abandoning ourselves. So when we can stay centered and hold on to ourselves, we stop falling into crisis, right? Right. And that's very hard because that's detachment from ourselves in a, like, especially with post-traumatic stress, right? That happens a lot. We hit that trigger and we're back where we are, and but we're leaving ourselves, we're leaving our boundaries, we're leaving who we are. And once we learn how to stay grounded in who we are, anxiety starts to go away. We can come up with solutions to the problem right in front of us.
Absolutely. I love that. So what do you hope changes in society because of the conversation started by people reading The Invisible Line?
I think a few things. I think we have to take self-responsibility and self-accountability and do as much as we can for our own selves. But I think for society, I hope they develop a different perspective on what it really means to be homeless, because we talk about it. People think we need socks and we need this. You know what? Shelters are full of socks and toothpaste and brushes and everything we need. We can get it on the street, but we don't get or we don't get respect from society. We don't get respect because they don't understand what we're actually going through, or the the challenges that we're faced with, both with, you could have mental illness, you can have physical challenges. There's so many, you could have addiction, right? And I wish society could just step back before they say, oh, you can't have a dream. That was actually said to me. And I wish they could just say, you know what? If you could dream anything, what would you dream? That changes. That's saying, giving the person hope and saying, oh, I have a future all of a sudden. Instead of saying, you're nothing, you can't dream, you can't have it anyway. So I wish they could just, because people who are homeless have there's 60 to 70% from the research I've done who it actually started in their homes through abuse. That's where it starts, a lot of it. Some people, they're orphans, and then when they hit 18, they shoo them on their way and they end up homeless. There's lots of different reasons people end up there. People get thrown out is often, for women, a reason why they end up homeless, from a spouse, from a friend, a roommate, whatever. So I wish, there's so much they've already grown up with negativity, and that's why they're there, right? Their thoughts are poverty thoughts because of everything they've been told in their life, the abuse. Everything keeps saying you're not lovable, you're useless, you're worthless. Where do worthless people go? To the street. They're fringes of society. If society could start turning the script and saying, you look really beautiful. Oh, instead of me walking away from you when I see you looking homeless in Tim Hortons, sit down and have a coffee or say hi, acknowledge that person, but say something positive to them so they see that there's a future, there's a way out, right? That there's support, because that's what they're lacking is that vision and that support to get them out or to get them to where they're supposed to be.
Absolutely. So I'm listening to that message, and that's so profound and so powerful. Thank you for that. I'm wondering, Erin, if you could leave readers with a sentence of encouragement, what would that be?
Have faith in yourself. Have faith. Just have some faith. Believe that where you are right now isn't the end, right? There's always an open door. And if you believe strong enough in who you are, that door will open.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for that. Erin, thank you for sharing your story, your courage, and your message with us today. The Invisible Line is more than a memoir. It's a conversation about identity, survival, stigma, healing, and the courage it takes to reclaim your own voice. For our viewers, if you're interested in learning more about Erin Light and the Invisible Line, a story of memory and how we break the patterns that break us, please check the links in the description box below. And if you enjoyed this interview, please like, subscribe, and share and support authors with meaningful stories. And as always, keep reading and discovering new voices. And we'll see you next time on Gimme 5 Reviews and Author Interviews. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you so much.
You. And thank you for your story too.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.